the political brawl about the tax cuts that you were promised by the Liberals at the last election, but which are opposed in part by Labor. Now, this debate makes me wonder how serious Labor is about encouraging people to get richer through their own hard work, not through someone else's. At the last election, the Liberals promised us the first serious personal income tax cuts that Australians have had in a decade. Now, these tax cuts aren't even that bold, really, although I must say the numbers do sound massive. They're worth $158 billion. Yes, but spread over 10 years. Plus, more than half of that amount, the tax cuts for higher income earners, more than 120,000, they won't actually come in for 5 years. 5 years, not until 2024. I tell you what, I'll give you a contrast. Here is one reason that America is growing 1/3 faster than Australia with an unemployment rate 1/3 less. You see, when President Donald Trump cut personal taxes of Americans, he didn't say, I'll cut them in 5 years. He cut them hard and straight away. Boom, the economy. But the Liberals want to do it slow. So its first cuts, its stage 1 cuts, worth around $1,000 a year for average income earners. Yes, they are to come in this month once the legislation goes through. But the second stage of cuts for people earning up to $120,000 a year, they don't come in for another 3 years. And that third stage for everyone else, richer Australians, you have to wait 5 years. Now, Labor is in all sorts of strife figuring out how to deal with this because historically it tends to think that the money you earn is best spent by the government and not by you. But it's now saying, after getting clobbered in the election, all right, we will pass in the Senate the first 2 stages of the government's cuts.
No, we're trying to win in the Parliament. We, of course, won't win in the House of Representatives.
Is this your final position?
We want to win in the Senate.
Okay.
That's what we're about.
And this is your final position?
That's what we're about, winning in the Senate. We're about getting stage 1 through. Stage 2, we support, but we think it should be brought forward because the economy needs it.
Yep.
On that point, true, Labor wants those second stage cuts, the ones due in 3 years, to be made now, not in 2022, to stimulate the economy, as you just heard Albanese say. Wow, you know, here's Labor actually sounding a bit like Donald Trump. I mean, this election really has changed a few things. And as you probably know, the Reserve Bank has already been saying, please to the government, please do get more money into the economy now. Stimulate it, save it, because unemployment is rising. Growth is slowing. And house prices, of course, have been falling. I'm sure you're feeling the pinch. But the government says no. And I suspect that may be in part because it swore blind at the election. Promised that it would next year finally give us the first budget surplus in 11 years, the very first since Kevin Rudd's Labor government went on a mad spending spree. And here's the hitch. If the Liberals do now do what Labor suggests and bring forward those 2022 tax cuts to now, that surplus, bang, will be gone. All that money out the door, it would look stupid. You've got to ask, is the Morrison government putting its pride above the economy? OK, that's one debate. And here I'm sympathetic to Labor. Not convinced, sympathetic. How about that? But then there's the other argument that was all today. Labor's stupid decision to say no to those final cuts, that third stage, the biggest cuts that are meant to come in 5 years' time for richer Australians. It says it's against those cuts, although it's still not exactly saying whether it will vote against them come the day. Here is Shadow Treasurer Jim Chalmers today.
We're worried that the government is doing an irresponsible thing here and committing such a large sum 5 years out. The responsible thing to do is to give tax cuts now to boost the economy, and what we're proposing gives effect to that.
Now, the Liberals simply cannot agree to that idea, leaving the first tax cuts, leaving it to another day for these tax cuts for richer Australians, because there's no way it could go to the next election saying, and now for our next bill. This is a bill for tax cuts only for the rich. It would be destroyed. So, if those tax cuts aren't part of this package, which includes cuts for poorer Australians, they'll never happen at all. Count on it. Then the question is, why is Labor even having this debate over 2024 tax cuts? For one, saying no to any tax cuts right now makes Labor look like big taxing class war warriors who learn nothing from their election debacle. And why complain now that these tax cuts might be wrong for 2024? I doubt it. But if they are, Labor can promise then to take them away. Wait 5 years' time, plenty of time then. We will take away your tax cuts, yeah, as if Labor would dare. But here's my tip. This tax package will get through Parliament, either with Labor's votes or the votes of the Senate crossbenchers. And they should. You should have had these tax cuts years ago. Not seeing instead one government after another frantically spending your money instead.